Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. And thanks to our episode sponsor, the Coffee Consultants Mastermind Group. If you were interested in joining the Coffee Consultants Mastermind Group, check the show notes below for more details. Today on the podcast, let's talk about why you should be paying special attention to inflation rates in the country that you're in right now and why this is important to coffee small businesses. For those of you who don't know what inflation is and why it's important, let's talk about that to start with. Inflation is best described in relation to thinking about the value of a dollar or whatever fiat currency that you deal in your local currency. So if I have a dollar 10 years ago, the value of what that dollar bought then versus what that dollar buys today is what inflation is. It goes up. So I said that wrong. It buys less. So the inflation has gone up if the value of your dollar is less. So if I can buy less with my dollar today than I could 10 years ago, that means the rate of inflation has gone up. I have been talking on this podcast about how I am more than sure that a financial crash is coming. One of the key indicators of a crash coming that economists look at very closely is the rate of inflation. And people have been wondering, why hasn't the inflation rate been reported as going up by the American government? And at the time of the recording of this episode, they were still doing what we call suppressing the inflation rate. They're still suppressing that as we speak. And the reason that it's being speculated that they are suppressing the rate of inflation is because by law in the US, Social Security has to go up at the same rate that inflation goes up. Now, if the American government announces that inflation has gone up, they have to increase Social Security. At a time when Social Security is being paid at the highest rate, there are more people on Social Security than have ever been on Social Security in America. So if they announce that inflation goes up, then they have to increase the amount that they're paying Social Security to this record number of people on Social Security, proportionate to the amount that the rate of inflation has gone up. So as you can see, this is where the magic, the wizardry and fuckery, as I like to call it, sits in this situation. So why do we care about this in coffee? Well, because what you're starting to see is that although the governments around the world are suppressing the inflation rate, that's not what we're actually seeing in things like commodities, which coffee is one of them. You're starting to see that there is an increase in the price that we are paying for raw commodities, things like lumber, things like coffee is going up, not as much as lumber, but you're starting to see loads of different commodities, raw materials particularly, start to increase in pricing as the year goes on. So while the government is not reporting an inflation rate, that doesn't mean that inflation isn't happening. So if you are looking at building a cafe, if you are looking at buying big stocks of coffee, if you are looking at doing anything that is in business, right now, inflation, whether it's being reported or not, is happening. It's starting to happen. Hyperinflation is when inflation gets out of control. Now, that is what people said would never happen in America. America would never experience hyperinflation. People are now expecting hyperinflation to happen in America. Hyperinflation has happened in places like Guatemala, Venezuela, Cuba. All these different places experience massive hyperinflation. People are saying that they anticipate that will happen in the US. Now, again, here on this podcast, we're all about being proactive about these things. How can you be proactive in anticipating that if inflation is real and it's happening and we are potentially around the globe going to enter into a state of hyperinflation, how can you prepare for something like that? Well, if you know that the price of cups are going to go up because the raw materials are going to go up, and before I finish saying this, if you don't agree with some of the things that you're hearing here or you don't understand them, go and legitimize it from other sources. Go and disprove it. Go listen to the people who are talking about it and experiencing it right now. Never believe any source that you hear say anything just on its own merits. Always go and figure out what you believe for yourself. Okay? So, carrying on from what I was saying, if you know that hyperinflation is coming or that inflation is coming, what can you do with any cash reserves that you have available to you right now to secure supplies for things like cups and coffee trays? And if you're going to be fitting out your cafe and you need to buy raw materials to retile or to do those kinds of things, securing those raw materials now, securing a year's worth of supply of cups now may help to cushion some of the blow that's going to come from inflation. Prices are already starting to increase around the world in different things. You'll start to see it in the supermarkets, and it's a flow-on effect from the price of raw materials starting to increase. Now, who knows when governments are going to start to legitimize any inflation that's happening. They may be anticipating that we're suppressing these rates because it's only going to be something that's short-lived. So there's no point going through the process of worrying people and causing panic buying. Who knows? What I do know is that there is the beginnings of inflation starting to show themselves in the marketplace. And if you're a small business owner, that is going to impact you, and it is going to impact the way that you do business. It's going to impact you from the cost side of things before it impacts you from the revenue side of things. So things will get more expensive for you before you're able to increase your pricing. And planning for how you increase pricing is going to be another important step that we'll cover sometime in the future on an episode of the Daily Coffee Pro. If you have any questions, if this is something that you want to start talking in depth about, consider joining one of our mastermind groups. We do talk about this kind of stuff all the time in the mastermind groups. If not, find resources that can help you with this. This is going to be very important for your small business. Peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.